free society. I stand here today a naturalized citizen, having been born and raised in South Africa. My dad stands with me as a member of society who survived the Second World War. Our South African men and women fought with the Allied soldiers against Hitler's army and the forces who joined them. My grandfather and 3 uncles volunteered to fight to protect freedom. I would like to make mention of a famous series of events that took place during World War II that particularly gripped my heart when I recall what my teacher taught me and my family shared with me. The series of events have been called the Long March. German authorities evacuated POW camps across Europe to delay the liberation of prisoners. Over 80,000 POWs were forced to march westward in the extreme winter conditions for 4 months in 1945. One of those survivors of the Long March was my uncle Nobby, who was first captured by the Italians from whom he escaped, and then captured by the Germans who sent him on the Long March. He was 15 years old when he volunteered to fight. My uncle Richard fought to hold back the tyranny of Hitler and died during the battle. His body was buried in Tikrit, Iraq, where I believe today the ISIS soldiers have desecrated those graves because white crosses adorn them. I believe those graves are no more. Uncle Thomas fought bravely to shoulder the burden of keeping freedom and suffered a life-altering injury in that war. My grandfather, George Wallace Clark, used his geological skills to dig water wells to keep the Allied army supplied with fresh water throughout Europe. He lost a son in that war in Tikrit, while his other son was captured by the Germans and Italians, not knowing whether he was even alive or where he was. And then he learned of the suffering of his other son, who suffered an injury. All but one of his boys were drastically affected by the war. My grandmother, Dorothy Clark, bravely kept the home front safe and sound. One of her children who was being kept safe was my mom. I beg this board to remember the sacrifice of American soldiers who sacrificed their lives, their dreams, their hopes, their desires, and gave everything to stop Hitler's advancing army. American soldiers stopped that horrific war and saved countless lives when they joined the war efforts. If we do not place importance on their sacrifice and on their accounts, how will the next generation know of history? The AP US history is grievously devoid of the accounts of Hitler and the atrocities against the Jews, Christians, and anyone who would not take up Hitler's cause. I never lived through World War II, but my school board made sure that I knew about the accounts of World War II and Hitler. Please do not dishonor people like my father and mother who lived through the war, and my grandfather and uncles who fought. Some died so that we could have freedom. And please, please, please do not dishonor the American soldiers who gave their lives, whose bodies lie buried in graves in Europe, who never made it back home to these United States of America and to their loved ones because they believed in the cause of freedom. Tell our young ones what happened in those years when Adolf Hitler maniacally marched through Europe and Northern Africa, and how American blood was spilled to stop his madness. I leave you with one quote by George Santayana, and this is a very famous quote. To those who do not learn history are doomed to repeat it. Or the original form was, those who cannot remember the past are doomed to repeat it. It is our job to equip the young ones with history, not revision.
Thank you.